Motion to approve is presented.
Motion second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. We'll move to number 5, discuss and consider approval of vouchers.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers as shown.
And I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just had one question. Top of page 2, looks like Wolf Paving and Excavating Company. It was paid about $20,000, and it's under the Piggly Wiggly. I'm not exactly sure what that is. Water driveway.
That was the well 3 driveway as part of the streets project that we repaved.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Move to number 6, unfinished business. Discuss and consider Vilas Sanitary Sewer Design Engineering Project.
So we talked last year at this point, early this year, about the Vilas sanitary sewer sag that we have along Vilas Road that the farm interceptor is connecting to. We had originally potentially looked to change order that in after long conversation and the risk associated with that. We decided to hold off to get soil borings. So as part of this is what I'm looking for is for Strand to essentially put together a plan sheet, us to get soil borings, and to have that included in one of our streets reconstruction projects for next year. So we've already budgeted in the construction aspect of it, so this is just getting approval for the design. Oh, it would be about $26,000. That would be helpful to say.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to proceed with design on the Vilas Road gravity main interceptor replacement design.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. We can move to number 7, new business. Discuss and consider water and sewer long-range cash flow and rate analysis plan.
Okay, so just to kind of preview this item, as part of the kind of comprehensive 2027 budget process, the Utility Commission has an obligation to do long-range cash flow to reflect on what possible capital projects and operating have an effect on the rates, as well as then in September passing and adopting a budget for the utility for 2027. So this is really the planning portion of the project. Last year we really aligned this to kind of align with when the village board is doing their projects to make sure that all the projects are happening at the same time, same numbers, and trying to consolidate many documents as possible. So this is now I believe this is year 3 of this process. And really has shown, in my opinion, and we'll go into this more, dividends from a planning perspective. Some of the projected rate increases towards the end of the presentation. But we're seeing, we've been communicating with MMSD. They're communicating us, their goal is to have 10 and 12% increases in their rates for next year, and roughly, up to 10% a year increase after that. What was in the packet you'll see is much less than that. So by doing these plans, we can really proactively manage these rates to the best of our ability to make sure we're not seeing spikes. Now, I will caveat that with saying, unfortunately for water, that has to go through a legal rate change process with the PSC. So we did not, because we had active projects that went into affecting our rate, we didn't do a conventional rate case for 2026, but there's going to be a recommendation to kind of start that process with tentatively having rates and new rates into effect as of July 1 of 2027. So with that said, I'll turn it over to John Cameron.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me here this afternoon. So as Cameron mentioned, this is now year 3 of us having the privilege of working with you all on looking at the utilities and the cash flows for the utilities. So really, in terms of what we're going to cover today, we know that you've got a series of capital improvement projects on both the water and the sewer side. So we're looking at keeping the utilities in a self-sustaining manner, meaning that they are enterprise funds of the village, and really the revenues that are being generated from user rates as well as other sources need to be sufficient to cover all costs within the utility, both operating as well as capital recovery, as well as to generate on the water side, a rate of return that is in line with the Public Service Commission's benchmark rate of return and is generating positive annual cash flow for the most part, with the exception of years where you might be spending some of that cash on capital-related projects. And the same goes for the sewer side, that you're ensuring that the utility is meeting all of its obligations as well as maintaining reserves at at least a minimum benchmark standard. So we'll walk through that in some detail here this evening. If you look at slide 3, which is defining the revenue requirement. So the revenue requirement is simply defined as the amount of money we need to generate from our user rates in order to pay for all costs within the utility. On the water side, that is looked at two different ways. Sewer can also be looked at two different ways, but most commonly we're just looking at things from a cash-based method. But when we look at things from just pure cash flow, we're wanting to make sure that we're covering our operating and maintenance expenses, our taxes, so our payment in lieu of taxes that the water utility makes back to the general fund, as well as other FICA and other types of tax payments, debt service payments, principal and interest, and then any capital funded from our user rates, less any non-rate revenue, so tower lease revenue, interest income, late fees, other types of miscellaneous revenues get factored into that bucket. So the difference between our expenses and our other revenues is defined as the revenue requirement, the amount that we need to generate from our user rates. Public Service Commission, when you get into it from a conventional rate case standpoint, and when you submit your annual reports each May, they are looking at it largely from the same on the same thing, side as the cash basis, with a few key differences. They're wanting to make sure that you're recovering 100% of your operating and maintenance expenses, your payment in lieu of taxes, transfer payments, just like on the cash side. The difference is on capital recovery. So they're looking at that revenue requirement from a capital recovery standpoint as funding 100% of your depreciation on the assets that are being financed by the utility, and then a rate of return on the undepreciated share of those assets. From a big picture standpoint, depreciation recovers the principal of the asset in the ground over its lifespan. Rate of return recovers the interest expense on that asset or series of assets over their lifespan. Rate of return, if you think of it, from a business standpoint, rate of return also provides a metric of a signalization to you, to anybody who picks up that PSC annual report, and also to PSC staff of the utility's ability to reinvest in itself based on your existing user rate revenue stream. So the higher the rate of return, the more ability you have to go out and do projects and continue to reinvest in yourself. Lower rate of return signals that you don't have that buying power, and likely you're going to need to do some form of rate adjustment. PSC establishes the benchmark rate of return. Right now, it's just over 6% at different points during the calendar year, but it's generally based on existing interest rates with an additional 200 basis points or 2% built into that metric. So when we take things a step further and we look at water on a historical basis, going back to 2021 and then out through the current budget year, and we look at things both on a cash basis and a utility basis. So walking from left to right, looking at cash first, our operating and maintenance expenses and payment in lieu of taxes are shown in the bars in orange. Our annual debt service payment is in the tan bar, and then cash-funded capital expenses are shown in blue. Our revenue requirement is the line going across in purple, and the annual amount of revenue we take in from our user rates is shown in green. So ideally, what you'd like to see is that the green line is at or above the purple line on an annual basis, with a few notable exceptions. And the biggest one is if you have a year where you're doing more cash-funded capital, maybe dipping into reserves to do a project or series of projects, that would be an exception. Same thing with one-time operating expenses that are outside the norm. On a utility-based method, same O&M expenses, same payment in lieu of taxes, but on the capital side, we've got depreciation and rate of return. So same revenue requirement in going across in purple, and our green line going across represents the amount of actual or projected revenue from user rates. And what you see going into 2026 is a deviation where our revenues from user rates really are below the revenue requirement when you factor in the PSC's benchmark rate of return at just over 6%. So it signals to us, before we go even deeper, that you need a conventional rate case, and that really was the same message that we brought last year to this same forum. If you look at the next page and further financial indicators, a few other things to point out. We're always looking at your reserves, with the target being 6 months of operating expenses and 1 year's worth of debt service payment. Your ending cash balance has really increased since 2022 and is just at or just below that benchmark target. And then operating ratio, really meaning can we recover 100% of our operating expenses and 100% of our depreciation on utility financed assets and service. And we are just above 1 times coverage on that factor. So indicates that the utility is really right at the cusp of needing a rate increase, which is what you're going to see here in the presentation. If you look at the next page and the future capital improvement needs for the utility, outside of projects that are being funded with impact fees, which is shown on the bottom of that page, what's identified is $6.3 million of capital improvement projects out through 2031. Of that total, $5.9 million is identified for general obligation debt financing, long-term debt financing, and $407,000 identified for cash-funded capital funded on an annual basis. From a cash flow standpoint, on the next page, the way this is laid out is our total revenues from user rates are on the top line. If there is a rate increase, we're showing that below that. The color differentiation is that dark green indicates a conventional rate case with Public Service Commission. The light green would signal a simplified or inflationary increase with Public Service Commission. Below that, we've got our other revenues coming in, which is primarily cell tower lease revenue, late fees, and other miscellaneous revenues, as well as interest income. And then we get into the expense side, operating and maintenance expenses trending across the page, as well as the payment in lieu of taxes, or the pilot payment to the general fund. And then we show your existing and new debt coming in below that. So if there's a financing starting in, or that would occur in 2027, the principal and interest payments would start in 2028, and then beyond, financing shown in 28, 29, 30, and 31 would have those principal and interest payments starting that following year. So we've got then the net annual cash flow, which is the difference between our revenues and our expenses. So to kind of cut to the bottom line, what is recommended for the utility is a conventional case that would start really very soon. it takes about a year to get through, or less, to get through and have new rates take effect. So if you're looking at potentially having new rates take effect the midpoint of 2027, we need to start working on that in the very near future. What's identified is 27.7%, and that just matches exactly to the PSC's process and formula for increasing user rates. So it's fairly prescriptive. So we're showing you what we think the end result of the application process is going to be. And then again, starting another case in 2028 with those rates taking effect in 2029. That's projected to be just under a 14% increase, and then a simplified increase happening in the year 2031 at 3%. And I'll show you what that means to the average customer here in just a few minutes. From a next page, from a benchmarking standpoint, the biggest metric again is monitoring that rate of return. So we could show a cash flow analysis that recommends a higher needed rate increase. We don't need that, but could. But the PSC again would say, really right now, benchmark rate of return is at 6.4%. So you again are locked in or prescribed to that rate increase that's shown on the previous page. So all we're really showing is going out through 2031, those rate increases that are recommended match to the PSC's methodology and keep us really in line with where the current benchmark rate of return is. And as that adjusts over time, this cash flow will change as well. On the sanitary sewer side, we're really just simplifying it, looking at cash in, cash out. So our operating and maintenance expenses shown in the orange bars going across the page, debt in tan, and cash funded capital expenses in blue. Looking out at 2026, our revenues from user rates are really right on top of where they need to be in terms of recovering 100% of our revenue requirement. So we're not generating revenues really above that, but we're also not below the line either. So we're really just kind of keeping up with things. And what you'll see here in a minute is the rate increase that's recommended for 2027 is really in line with just keeping up with projected operating and maintenance expenses going into the next year. From a financial indicator standpoint, on page 10 of the presentation, looking at your reserves, again, the same target, 6 months of operating expenses and 1 year's debt service. The utilities got reserves that are just above that benchmark status, which is great, but it tells us that while we do have some money to potentially use for cash-funded capital expenses, we don't have a lot of excess cash to be able to apply towards projects. And then really right on top of recovering 100% of operating expenses and depreciation on assets and service.
And John, this is really what I'll point to here. This is why we do this process is, like I said, this is year 3 of doing this process. Getting these lines lined up as close as possible is the goal. So because this commission has the authority to increase rates whenever is needed, we're able to be much more proactive in that approach because, unfortunately, on the water side, it's a more or less legal process with the PSC. That's why sometimes you get a little bit of the yo-yoing. But on the sewer side, we can, as long as we're staying on top of that, we can be right on or very close to this.
Right. Yeah. On the water side, when you see those rate increases, you can't do a application and book those assets into service until the year that they are actually placed into service. So sewer, you can be more proactive. On the capital side, on slide 11, the utility has just under $3.2 million of future capital improvement projects outside of the Ridge Lift Station project, which is anticipated to be funded with sanitary sewer impact fee revenue. Of that roughly 3.2 million, about 2.5 million of that is anticipated to be financed with general obligation debt over a long-term basis, and 702,000 of the CIP is anticipated to be cash funded. The rate increases are shown on page 12, and same setup in terms of the cash flow with total revenues from user rates at the top, and those rate increases shown by year just below that. So a 5% increase is recommended in 2027, and again in 2028, and then the potential to take a few year break and come back in 2031 at 3%. Could you break that up and maybe do 1% a year for that 2031? Sure, but this is kind of what we're showing in terms of just laying it out over that 5-year period of time. What does this mean for the average user? If you look at page 13, it kind of brings it all home. So average user using 3,250 gallons of water per month. That 27% increase equates to about a $12 increase to the water portion of the utility bill on a monthly basis. A 5% increase to sanitary sewer rates yields about a $2.53 increase per month. So you can see then going into the future that another conventional case hitting in year 2029 would be about a $7.76 increase on the monthly bill, 5% increase on the sanitary sewer bill next year, or 2 years from now in 2028, would be about a $2.65 increase. So over the 5-year planning period, water rates are anticipated to increase just under $22. From $43.73 where they are now to $65.52. Sanitary sewer about $6.85. And then we just show it on an annual basis, and the total utility bill as a percentage of median household income level, which speaks to affordability. When you cross over that 2% threshold in terms of utility rates as a percentage of median household income, revenue, a source like the American Water Works Association would start to signal that that could be unaffordable, but that's just not happening here, which is good. So recommendations on the water side, we would recommend you begin a conventional rate case with the goal of having rates placed into effect by the midway point of 2027, which is doable. Takes a while to get through Public Service Commission, but and many rounds of questions with staff and with us, but definitely doable. Capital improvement projects funded with a mixture of general obligation debt and cash on hand. And then we're looking at the potential for conventional rate increase in 2028 and a simplified increase in 2030, taking effect in 2031. On the sanitary sewer side, looking at a 5% increase in 2027, same mixture of general obligation debt and cash on hand, and then looking at the possibility of rate increases in the future, but they're more inflationary in nature and really just designed to keep up with increasing operating expenses, as well as the increase to debt service to fund the projects that are listed in the CIP. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
So before I pass it over to questions, just a reminder, as we indicated in the sewer rates, we're seeing 10% increases on MMSD, and we're only recommending 5%. So like, we're taking a little bit of a haircut to make sure that those rates aren't becoming ridiculous. Now, I do plan on going to MMSD's community budget preview on August 20th, and I will continue to advocate for minimizing the rates to extent possible. But as I mentioned before, their goal is 10 to 12% increase next year. We could be seeing an increase north of that. So that's where we have a little bit of variability. So I feel comfortable with the recommended rate for next year. I would, if the cost would remain as consistent in this plan, we would look to smooth 28, 29, and 30. We wouldn't do 5% 1 year, 0 and 0. We would do like 2, 1.5, like a percentage that makes sense. So it's not a big increase at once, but the big variability with the increase in MMSG charges is a huge variable on the sewer side. Should the utility commission move forward with this, this plan, we would start a conventional rate case study tomorrow. So we would pull the application and start that process. Back to you, Chris.
Any questions, comments, concerns?
I guess Cameron, in your conversations with MMSD so far and understanding, if we choose to not raise at the same rate that MMSD is, are we going to have a bigger jump in 5 years as we try to recover from what we haven't been taking each year to keep up with their increases?
I think so. We're not taking the approach right now where we're not addressing any of our needs. So we're still doing reconstruction, like in the capital plan, there's reconstruction progress and things that are being done. I think where you're seeing our budget increase, our portion of the budget increasing 1% to 2%, their portion of the budget increasing 10%, and that's where we're hitting in the middle. That's one of the things I'm advocating for, is the more of the pie that's taken up by the treatment, the less of the pie is being taken care of on day-to-day operations. And there's been other communities that feel, I would personally like there to be a cap on what they can increase in any given year. It's something that I've been advocating for, and then if they want to go above and beyond the cap, that all the member communities could vote for a simple majority. But 10% increases year over year is, I couldn't increase any other thing that the village does at that amount. Right. And so frankly, for us, it's frustrating. I understanding the DNR and other requirements, but it's really frustrating, especially when, we want to make sure that we're remaining affordable. So long answer, Stuart, we're not sacrificing any, we're not deferring any maintenance right now. If the commission would like us to try to decrease rates, that's when we're starting to have a conversation that we're going to start deferring some maintenance in reconstruction progress, which is not a way we want to get, because we have a new system right now. If we don't keep up on it, we're going to end up like Madison and Milwaukee, where we're replacing massive sections of road and projects every year, and constantly addressing main breaks, constantly addressing backup issues. So trying to keep our system, where it needs to be.
Anything else from anybody? Otherwise, this is a discuss and consider.
I'll make the motion to approve the water and sewer long-range cash flow and rate analysis plan.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. We can move to number 8, Directors and Engineering Report.
So this is a long directors and engineering report because we didn't meet in the month of July. So bear with me while I kind of do some high level and you guys can ask any questions. We submitted our risk and resilience assessment and emergency response plan at the end of June. Every 5 years, this has to be renewed per part of the EPA's annual America's Water Infrastructure Act. Communication was sent out to this commission about a sanitary sewer overflow that we had on July 8th near 110 North Main Street. It was very minimal. We took care of it at the time. There were no public health concerns. We completed our Q3 lead and copper sampling that is required every 3 years. We're required to get 20 samples from a selected group of locations. We actually just finished part 1 of our sanitary sewer easement cleaning and televising. We'll be doing a second part here in September. Previous communication was sent out in January that we'd be coming through making sure those easements were accessible, and communication went out again in July that the work would be happening in August and September. There has been communication gone out to this commission and village board regarding discolored water concerns from a variety of residents. In the last 2 months since June 1st of 2026, I have received 16 calls regarding discolored water. Most of them have been very isolated concerns, whether it's with a main break that I'll be discussing next, a service being located at a dead end near a fire hydrant, so there's not a lot of water usage. And then there was several for a condo building that did fire suppression testing, and they didn't run their fire suppression test long enough, and so some things didn't get cleaned up well in there. We highly recommend timely reporting, so if people are having concerns of their water, timely reporting to myself makes it easier for us to address the concern as quick as possible. We had a water main break on the 22nd on Reynolds and Bass. That was taken care of. Looks like there was a deflection in the pipe where the pipe kind of was corroding itself and hitting each other. So that was taken care of. That bill has come through. We're hoping for no more water breaks this year. It's the second one. We did a entire village-wide hydrant flushing in April and finished mid-July because the Well 2 rehab project has begun and the Well 2 is now off. GIS update, we are moved from Infinite GIS over to ArcGIS Online. We're currently operating on this platform. It's a little testy with us. We're getting all the kinks out, but it is operating as we need be. In September, there is going to be an additional request for an additional position for 2027 for Public Works for a general technician shared between Public Works, Sewer, and Water. To allow for ample time for 2027 budgeting where we don't have back-to-back-to-back, and to allow for additional time for myself to put the budget together, I am proposing to have budget meetings on September 16th, where Utility Commission would meet at 5 p.m. and Public Works would meet at 6 p.m. Frontier is still ongoing. GLS is doing our locates. Heyday we're going to be doing their final walkthrough for utilities here later this fall when they're done. Well 2 is officially offline. We pulled actually the well hole itself today. So we're going to be getting a report on that and what that looks like for the maintenance. And then the rehab of the building is going to be happening later this month. The TT and Gaston Road water main looping project is substantially completed. They just finished the punch list this past week. We're going to be talking about the stormwater utility feasibility study here shortly, and South Main and Ollie Street for 2027 design has begun from Strand. Any questions? I'm sorry, I took your thing again, Chris. Sorry.
If there's no questions, then we can go to number 9, future agenda items.
It'll be the budget.
Budget, okay. If
I'd
there's anything
like
else,
to ask,
sorry, Charlie, go ahead.
if I can, from the outer Rice Lake area, can we discuss on the next meeting security, internet security with some of the stuff that's been going on? Just, we don't need anything in depth, just an update so that people know we're aware of what's going on and what we're doing. Okay,
Absolutely.
Good idea. Anything else?
thank you.
Okay, then we can move to number 10.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, non-debatable. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? We are adjourned. Can I just start the other one right away, or do you need that?
I need a minute.
Okay.
I don't mind. So I can put some names out.
You guys can come on up.